Hi, I'm Shoestring Jane. Welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things thrifty, frugal and money saving. And increasingly, I'm trying to be more sustainable. And I think being thrifty and frugal go hand in hand with saving the planet and being more sustainable. I've said this before because we tend to consume less and use less and repair and reuse and those kind of things. So that's really what I wanted to talk about today. Just buying less, but not necessarily living less, living more, if anything, and taking satisfaction in things and stuff, but only the things and the stuff that means something to you. And then just not bothering to buy the other stuff. So I was just thinking how this also really goes hand in hand with frugality, doesn't it? The underconsumption core hashtag that you see about the place that those of us that live a fairly thrifty and frugal life already just do. It's just kind of part of our inner being. So that's how we live. And if the message is getting out beyond these videos and frugal blogs and the obvious places, then that's brilliant. If it's becoming mainstream, as far as I'm concerned, that can only be a good thing as long as it continues. So the fact is, we all, even us frugal folk, buy and own too much stuff. I mean, even if I think I'm not buying, I don't buy a lot of expensive stuff. Sometimes I just pick up stuff that I don't necessarily need because it's cheap. And I think, well, that's a nice book and that's a nice book and they're only 50p each. And I end up bringing them all back and they're just more stuff, isn't it, really? So even all those 50p's add up, don't they? And most of us have so many possessions that we can't see the wood from the trees and we just don't need them. I mean, we can't use them, we can't appreciate them. You don't have to look at those programs on TV where they declutter people's houses. The Stacey Solomon one is quite good. And they lay out all of their possessions in a massive warehouse. And you think, how on earth did this family of four, or however many it is, fit these many possessions into their 3-bedroom semi-detached house? How did they even know? They didn't even know they had these things. And sometimes they're not attached to them until they see them again and they say, oh no, can't possibly get rid of that because that was my first ever t-shirt that I bought with my first paycheck, or whatever. Just they attach sentimental value to things that they never use. They're literally just taking up space, whilst simultaneously buying more stuff to cram their space, and they don't know what they've got already. So I thought I'd talk about that a little bit. Everything we buy costs us money, means we have to work to pay for those things, and they have a cost, an environmental cost, because obviously they cost energy to produce them, they cost energy to transport them. There's all the packaging and the oil that goes into them when they're made of plastic, and a lot of them are. So for that reason, I want to buy a lot less. And it drives me mad when politicians, and Rachel Reeves in the UK is our Chancellor, and she's constantly going on about this economic growth and how we've got to grow. And I think it doesn't take a genius to realise that you can't have relentless and infinite economic growth when you have a finite planet, finite space and finite resources. So that's another reason. Buy less stuff, just have less stuff and consume what you've got already. So I was thinking about ways to actually buy less stuff. I mean, obviously you can budget and only allow yourself a certain amount of money to buy certain categories of things. And I think you should have a budget and try and stick to your budget, because it will make such a big difference to your stress levels, and make sure that you don't get into debt and that you can put money away in savings and that kind of thing. But it also does have that added bonus of tending to reduce your consumption. But also, when you do buy, and sometimes you do have to buy things, sometimes we need things, buy better, try and buy better quality. So this is what I'm striving to do now. I mean, I've always tried to buy fairly good quality, but if I come across something that's secondhand, that's from Shein, and I like it and it doesn't cost very much money, I would buy it. Now I'm trying to move away from that kind of thing and just not fill my cupboard up with just cheap clothing and my house up with cheap anything really, but just try to think about, I'm not exactly going to have a capsule wardrobe. I mean, let's face it, I'm not a fashionista. I don't have an office job. I don't need a capsule wardrobe, but I certainly would like to move towards having quite basic usable, wearable clothing that's really good quality. Now, I've been wearing this polo neck for practically the whole winter because it's good for layering up. It goes with everything, and it's just a really practical item. However, it's from H&M originally. I think it's made of acrylic, and it is starting to kind of bobble up a lot. You can see the bobbling. I can't complain about it though, because I got it from the £1 charity shop. So from my point of view, it's been a massive bargain. But what I would like to do to replace this is to buy a really good quality wool polo neck jumper in a dark colour, black or dark grey, for next winter. So I'm going to be looking in the sales of places like Community Clothing and Woolovers and places where I know they do decent quality items, and seeing if I can get something in the sales that will do me for next winter. So that's part of my plan. So being kind of intentional about what I buy and buying better quality. I've always been able to do this with furniture because I buy secondhand, but I look for quality pieces. I was really pleased to find, you can't really see it, but this sideboard is an oak sideboard. These cost a lot of money new. I got it from the auction for £70, and I was looking at similar things online and they were like £400 minimum. So that's a good quality item of furniture, and that will just last me. That will last me forever. I'll probably never ever be able to or need to buy anything like that again. So buying quality, it was worth it, even if it was secondhand. So if I have to save up to buy something that's really good quality, so for example, if my washing machine breaks down, I will be saving up, or, well, I've got an emergency fund, so I'll probably use that and then save up to refill the emergency fund to buy something that's good quality. And the only one that seems to be good, and my washing machine engineer once told me that when I was trying to repair an old washing machine, but it was old, and he said, in all honesty, this is going to cost you so much to repair, you may as well replace it. And this is what you get, isn't it? Or they're not repairable, and they should be. He said, buy a Miele, I think that's how you pronounce it, Miele. I think it's a German brand. Buy one of those. It costs you more, but it will last you a lot longer. They're actually tested and made to last. They're not made to fail after a couple of years. There's not that built-in planned obsolescence that happens with so many of our electrical goods. So that's my plan for the next time I need something like a washing machine. The dishwasher, if that dies, I'm just not going to replace it because we barely use it. It's a 3/4 size or a half size dishwasher that was here already when we got the house, and it's not very practical. There's not space there in our kitchen for a full size one. I wouldn't want to give up the cupboard space to one. I'd rather just wash by hand. I haven't got a whole family of children here that I am constantly having to do washing up for. It's just me and Justin. Hand washing takes no time, so that's what I'll be doing. Most of the time I do that anyway because I don't find it a very good dishwasher. It's not practical. You can't fit big pans in it and that kind of thing. It takes very little. So I think I may as well wash by hand. I can't be bothered to fill it up and empty it. So that's the plan. So I think just having this idea that you buy the best quality that you possibly can afford, but buy fewer things, is kind of a well-known one amongst minimalists. But it's a really good habit to get into. And that could mean you buy secondhand things. Doesn't always work with electrical items. Sometimes they're already a bit worn out. But with lots of things, it'll work. I love 1920s, 1930s furniture for bedrooms, for example. They were considered ugly. You get these big kind of rounded wardrobes and a bit Art Deco. But I think they're beautiful. And honestly, if you don't like them in the dark wood that they tend to come in, you can repaint them. I think they're not as cheap. I think people are cottoning onto this. They're not as cheap as they used to be. But they will literally see you out, whereas a piece of cheap furniture from Argos or from IKEA or from Amazon, that's really cheap, that stuff. It's just not going to last 5 minutes. So, if you want something that will be durable, then sometimes going for the old vintage stuff is a really good move. And I've always done that, bought old furniture. When the girls were small, we had those big old wardrobes and they fitted so much in them and they were solid, and it didn't matter if they crashed their toys into them and that kind of thing. They survived. I painted them all white. I didn't do anything fancy, so they just looked great. I thought they were really good. So that's what my plan is, and that's my first bit of advice, I think, really, to reduce your consumption. Buy less, but live better. and that is just to buy quality. And then once you've bought better quality, it's actually worth repairing things, isn't it? So if you buy a really, really good pair of shoes that cost you £100 maybe, or maybe you get them in the sale like I usually do, or maybe you get them secondhand, but they're really excellent quality to start with, then it's worth going and getting them resoled or rehealed or repaired in some way, isn't it? And you can get them repaired time and time again. And the same as if I buy my beautiful new jumper, I will be very careful to look after it and be careful how I wash it, hand wash it, make sure that it doesn't get stretched and that kind of thing. And I wear clothes quite a lot. I don't do a manual job. I don't get really filthy. I don't need to wash them every time I wear them. So those kind of things. And repair things. My daughter bought me a hat for Christmas, and it wasn't anything special. It was just a grey hat, nice and warm. But I wore it for 2 months, and then it's just unravelled at the top, so that the crown had completely just come undone. So it was just so badly made. So I just sat there and sewed it up the other day. Good as new. It probably won't last me forever because I think it was quite badly made in the first place. So if I was going to get another new hat, I would go for something of better quality that would last me longer and not unravel just for no reason whatsoever. It was literally just sitting on the side where we put all our stuff for dog walking, and I came back and it just unravelled itself. So, it's not something, I mean, I did repair it, but if I bought better in the first place, I wouldn't have needed to repair it. And then lots of other things, if you buy decent quality anything, then you can look at what is possible to repair. We have a repair shop here now. They'll have a go. I think they're basically volunteers. They'll have a go at small repairs of anything, even electrical items, even those things like that. Sometimes they're unrepairable because they're sealed. They have sealed components you can't get to. They'll have a go at repairing all of those things for you. And I think that's a really, really good service. The other thing we have is a bike repair shop here, and they will repair your cycles. So if you're already being kind of more sustainable and trying to cut back on the amount of fuel you use and you cycle everywhere, then you can go and get your cycle repaired, if not for free, for a very small amount of money. So it's worth doing that. When you buy quality, you can afford to pay to get them repaired over and over again. It will still be cheaper than buying cheap rubbish, it going to landfill when it breaks and you having to buy more. Stopping impulse purchasing is another way to reduce your consumption. And I have done a video, I'll try and link it below, or I've certainly got a blog post anyway on my blog about things you can do, little methods to stop you impulse purchasing. And I've admitted several times that my worst thing for impulse purchasing is scrolling Vinted in the morning. So I go through all of my eBay listings and I go through all of my Vinted to see what offers I can send, and that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Then I should be coming off and not shopping. Vinted draws me in and I really have to fight it. But what I would do with a lot of other apps, I can't get rid of that app obviously because I'm using it to sell things on, but other apps that make it too easy, like the Amazon app. I mean, I'm not buying from Amazon anyway at the moment, but get rid of it. If it's not on your phone, you're not going to see it all the time and constantly going in it. And if you're like me with Vinted, hide it. You can hide it, take it off your phone. It's not delete the app, but just so you're not looking at it all the time. And then if you really want something, you can go on and look at Vinted, can't you? So get rid of the apps. There's lots of ways. I will say, I won't go through them all now, but a big thing that I find is really, really good to slow you down and stop you just making purchases without really thinking about it is to think about your buying quality. So therefore you're paying more. So therefore you want to do your research. You want to read lots of reviews, have a look on the Which website and see what they recommend for whatever product you're buying. Look at reviews all around the internet, compare pricing, maybe compare pricing when it's like now when there aren't sales on, and then keep that thing in mind for when there are going to be sales. So it slows you down. And if you slow down, you sometimes think, well, actually, I don't need that now. I didn't need that after all, when you come to think about it. So the other trick is that a lot of people tell me in the comments that they put things in their basket, go away for a couple of days, come back, go, oh, that's in my basket. Sometimes they've forgotten it's even there. And sometimes they've decided in the meantime they don't need it after all. So, that really helps slow you down. Do your research, take your time, save up, and then that will help you to buy less and consume less. So another thing you can do to consume less is to make sure you use what you already have. When we have a lot of possessions, we can't see the wood from the trees. As I said, you just don't know what you've got. So you end up buying more of the same thing because you're not organised and you don't know what you've got, and you've got things rammed at the back of your cupboards, in your drawers, in your wardrobe, even in your food cupboards. You've got things rammed in there. You don't know what you've got. So getting organised and going through and really collating what you've got, thinking, for example, with clothing, what am I really going to wear? What will I not wear? Can I donate it? Can I sell it? Will somebody else actually make use of this and I'm not going to, so it doesn't get wasted? Have I got things that go together? Can I make outfits out of what I've got? And kind of collate what you've got, because I think that happens a lot with clothing. I know that because I buy to resell, I pick up a lot of clothing which still has its tags, which people obviously impulse purchased cheaply. So they haven't bought quality. It's so easy to do that, isn't it, when everything's so cheap? And then they've regretted it and they can't be bothered to take it back to the shop, or they can't bother to send it back. So they just end up donating it. And what a waste of your money. It may only be £10, but if you have a lot of things that cost you £10 or £20 that you buy on impulse, you don't try on first, you can't bother to send back, that you never wear, then it starts to add up, doesn't it? And, not many of us are on such a massive income that we can afford probably just to waste a load of money in that way. So that's clothing. We do it with food as well. People don't meal plan, and I'd say meal planning is a massive money saver. They don't know what's in their cupboards. They don't rotate what they've got. Things sit at the back, like you'll end up with pasta, which is like 3 years beyond its use by date, or herbs that no longer have any kind of pungency because they've sat, and you don't know they're dried herbs and they've just sat there. So although you could use those, and I would say I would use the pasta anyway, you can use them because they're past their best before date, not their use by date. Some people would just chuck those out. So if you rotate what you've got and just look and think, what have I got? What needs using up? What do I need to use in my stores? Can I plan it into our meals for this week? And that's even more important, obviously, in your fridge and your freezer, because things don't last forever, not even in the freezer, and certainly not fresh produce in your fridge. So I was really annoyed with myself this week because I found half a lettuce. It lasts for ages, so I could have been using it all this week. By the time I got to it, it had been rammed at the back of the fridge, and it had got a bit too cold, and it had gone really brown. So I had to throw it in the compost. So I was really annoyed with myself. And this kind of thing does happen to all of us. But if you've got lots of stuff in there and you haven't planned your meals, then you're much, much more likely to waste food, aren't you, of any description. And it can be the same with books. I used to have bookshelves and bookshelves. I remember my mum saying to me, oh, a house needs books. And I agree, a house does need books. But a house doesn't need rows and rows of bookshelves of books that you're never going to read again. Now, I have a friend who has the most books that I've seen in anybody's front room. It's almost a library, but she reads them and rereads them. I've never known such a voracious reader as her. So fair dues, that's absolutely fine. For me, I have a few books that I will go back to time and time again. They're reference books. I very rarely reread fiction, although I'm getting to the age where I've forgotten what happened the first time round, so I can reread them now, but I'm not keeping everything. You can pick up secondhand books really cheaply from World of Books and places like that. So I don't need to keep buying more books and keeping them all in my house. So I cleared out a lot of books. I really want to use the library as much as possible, so I try to use our local library. It's part-time, so I can order things on the app, and when they are open, I'll get a notification. I can go and pick them up. So the fact that they're not open all the time doesn't really matter. And with the libraries, I've said it before, use them or lose them. They are brilliant, particularly for families. They have so many activities going on. It's been half term this week, and our libraries had storytelling sessions, computer sessions and that sort of thing going on for kids. So see what's happening in your local library and, use them, as I say, really use them. I was getting off track really a little bit, but they are more than just books, is what I'm trying to say. Go through your house and do an audit regularly. Just, you don't have to do it all in one go, do you? You can go through your bookshelves just when you're doing the cleaning or whatever. I did that the other day. I ended up taking a bag full down to a little free book point we've got here. And I pick up books from there as well. And when I pick them up, I need to go and take a couple off my bookshelf that I'm not going to read or I've read and put them down there. So I put about 5 down because I picked up 3 the other day. So I like to read them and either pass them on or take them back there. Talking about using what you have, that also means using the last of what you've got. So if you've got, I don't know, some shampoo, use it to the last. My kids used to be the pits for this. I've said this before, my girls, they would get a fancy new shampoo and they wanted the matching conditioner and they would like abandon the shampoo because they wanted to have the matching ones, the ones that hadn't finished, and I'd end up using it up myself. And I think I always use everything up. I go down to the nth degree. I cut off the bottoms of toothpaste tubes and makeup tubes and that kind of thing. I'll scrape everything out, every last bit of product out, and I get a very strange frugal satisfaction for doing this, but I can't bear waste. And I think, well, I've paid for it. It's been produced for me. I'm going to flip and use it all. So that's a policy. It's really worth doing that. And training your family. I don't know if I ever trained my children to do this, but I did my best. Another tip for reducing your consumption is to really understand what's happening and understand how stuff is made, what it takes to make that stuff, and where it goes when we're finished with it. So I really, really recommend watching a video called The Story of Stuff. It's the Story of Stuff project. I follow them on social media as well. And it's quite an old video now, but it's so good. And it really was very enlightening and eye-opening for me when I watched it, because it explains all of the different processes that happen when we want something as consumers and it's provided for us. But it has far-reaching effects because those things are made maybe in far-off countries, usually in far-off countries these days. Maybe they're not great at controlling pollution and don't treat their workers very well and that kind of thing. And not great at dealing with their waste and those kind of things. Same in our countries as well. I'm not going to pretend that we're in any way superior, but they're trying to produce things very cheaply for our markets. So sometimes corners are cut, and it's really interesting to see that. But the biggest eye-opener was, where does your stuff go when you throw it away? Where do you think away is? And away quite often is in those developing countries again. So I used to be an avid recycler. I used to actually even be a recycling officer. And I was just appalled when it came up in the news that the plastics from Braintree District Council, which I used to work for as a recycling officer, ended up in, I can't remember which country it was, but in a faraway country on a rubbish dump. And it was still in the Braintree District Council rubbish sack and clearly hadn't been recycled. And local authorities are sending things away, saying they're going away to be recycled, but not actually ever checking that they're going to be recycled. And it's a big myth, isn't it, with plastics? We all think we can keep buying plastic containers, single-use plastic containers, because we can recycle them. But in reality, they're not being recycled. There's no use for those plastics. It costs quite a lot to produce, to sort through and produce new items from the old plastic. And there's lots of things made of plastic that get shoved into recycling that can never be recycled. Like I often see crisp packets. Well, crisp packets cannot be recycled, and soft plastics, along with your hard plastic bottles and yogurt pots and that kind of thing. So, but people don't know that. They think, well, I'm doing the right thing, I'm recycling. They shove them in, and because they're then contaminated, they end up in landfills. So I can't remember where I was going with this. I'm really going off at a tangent, aren't I? Just what I'm trying to say is, understand where away is, and that's not just for things that need recycling. That's for things like our electrical items that we chuck away, clothing that we chuck away. Where is away? And the Story of Stuff project really, really explains some of those issues, and it really makes you stop and think. And I think, well, for me anyway, it certainly made my consumption go down, and I think for most people it would have the same effect. So check out that video and some of the other videos that they've made. They're really, really good, well researched and well presented. Another thing that I'm doing that I would say is probably a good thing to do is to buy fewer gadgets. It's very tempting, isn't it, when we're constantly presented with new technology, not just phones and laptops and things, but new gadgets for the home. And we think that these are the must-have gadgets. Oh, they look great, and aren't they good? And then they last 5 minutes, and then they break, and then we feel like we need them, so we buy another one which lasts 5 minutes, and then it breaks. I mentioned this in my last video. the steamer, the floor steamer that I was given, but actually would have cost quite a lot of money. It would have cost about £100, I think. And it was a Veleda one, and it looked really sturdy. And I thought, great, this is great. Steaming floors, really, really good. Don't have to use any chemicals with it. Really good. It lasted 2 years, and then it's just died. And I know I can't get it repaired. It's still sitting upstairs with me thinking, oh, perhaps I can do something with it. But I know I can't. I've got out my mop and bucket again. I'm using that, and I'm thinking, I'm glad I didn't buy that steamer, because honestly, mops and buckets clean your floor perfectly adequately. Okay, they don't dry as quickly, but what I do is I go round with an old towel and just dry it all, and that does the trick. So honestly, I'll never be buying another one of those again. And I did mention this, I don't want to repeat myself too much because it was all talked about in my last video, and some of you in the comments agreed with, how the things that you're not replacing. And somebody said that they haven't got a microwave and they haven't got a dishwasher, and those are two things. I've already mentioned the dishwasher, but the microwave, I'm thinking, I've always had a microwave. What happens is I always try and wipe it out after I've used it. It gets very steamy, doesn't it? And it always disintegrates the paintwork, and you get the kind of rust coming through. And then, as I understand it, that's not really safe anymore. The last one was terrible. It actually died in the end. I don't know. I think the lodger put something in it that they shouldn't have, and it just died. And then I bought this one. But when this one goes, I am not going to replace it. What I use it for is reheating meals. I have that function on my Ninja. So another gadget, but I do actually like that gadget. I think I value that gadget. It's lasted all right so far. It's lasted me about 3 years so far. I've got that. I can reheat things in my Ninja. I make porridge sometimes in the microwave. I often also make it in a pan. I think it tastes nicer in a pan, and literally it takes about 2 minutes longer. And I warm up milk. If I'm having a kind of latte or something like that, I can do that in a pan. When I grew up, we didn't have microwaves. We just used a pan. We didn't have a Ninja even to reheat food. So if you were late back, Mum would put your meal with another plate on top of it on a really low oven, and you would hope it just wouldn't be too dried out by the time you got back. And if she'd taken it out of the oven, you would put it on a pan of hot water to heat it up. And okay, it wasn't ideal. It wasn't great, but it worked enough, and now I've got the reheat function on my Ninja. I think the microwave can go. I don't have a lot of worktop space in my kitchen, so I'd appreciate that space. And as I said already, the dishwasher, forget it. I will replace the washing machine. If the washing machine goes, I'm going to be getting it as a Miele. So as I said before, if the washing machine goes, I'll be getting a Miele, because good quality. Anyway, you get my drift. Going low tech on certain items where you can is a good plan. I've also noticed with cars, now I've always had old cars. I've never bought a new car. The car I drive at the moment was already, I think it was 2009 when I bought it. It was 2009. So it was already pretty old. I've had it about 3 or 4 years. It's a great little car. I love it. It's a Nissan. I really like it. It's really small. I can get into lots of little spaces for parking. I can squeeze through gaps in the traffic. It's very fuel efficient. I love my little car. But what I've noticed with other people who've got posh cars or newer cars is they have a lot of gadgets and they go wrong. For example, again, it was a second-hand car, but it was a newer car that my daughter bought. And it had so many electrical things on it, all of which had started to go wrong. And that ended up being an absolute pain. We ended up getting rid of that car because all of these things, they cost quite a lot, or they couldn't be put right. So I think I'd rather have low tech on these things. So I'm going to be sticking with the really old cars for now. And I mean, it'd be great to get rid of the car altogether, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'm using the train a lot more now. But, you get what I'm saying. High tech everything tends to mean it becomes old tech quite quickly. It stops working. I noticed that I have an Apple phone and an Apple laptop, but I'm resisting upgrading my phone. I'm filming with it now. I'm resisting it. It's quite an old phone, but I think it's only not working as well as it should because Apple keep doing these updates on it. I also have to do the updates, otherwise it doesn't function at all. But it's this built-in obsolescence because they don't want me to keep my phone forever. I'm trying to keep my technology like that going for as long as I possibly can, because I don't want to constantly be upgrading my phone. It costs a lot of money. They use lots and lots of kind of precious metals and things in their production. I know you can recycle your phone afterwards, and I think they do actually get recycled, but you see an advert, there's an advert running at the moment on telly where this so-and-so upgrades his phone every year. And I think, why? Don't upgrade your phone every year. How wasteful is that? You don't need a new flipping phone every year. Just because the company offers you an upgrade, you don't have to do it. They don't offer you an upgrade for free. The phone is always more expensive the next one, so you always end up having to get into another contract. So I'm trying to keep my tech going for as long as I possibly can. I mean, my laptop was secondhand and reconditioned, and it's doing all right. So for my purposes, it is fine. So I'm going to keep them going for as long as possible. I still have CDs. I do have an Alexa. I resent Alexa listening to me and then presenting me with things to buy that I don't want to buy. I really resent that. And I've tried to adjust it in the settings and unsuccessfully. And she listens. And don't you think that's absolutely freaky? How have we become this kind of Big Brother society where we accept that as a thing? And all of the cookies on your websites that you go to, they all know what you've been looking at, and then you're presented with them. Sometimes they've gone up in price. It's such a kind of spy culture that we've got into. I've got loads of CDs. And I was thinking I should clear out my CDs. I can get everything. I can listen to music on Alexa. Now I'm thinking, no, I'm actually looking at a vintage CD player and getting myself a vintage CD come record player would be good, because I've still got some vinyl, and getting rid of Alexa, because my old CD players never used to listen to me. Anyway, God, I am ranting, aren't I? So the next little tip on my list is to borrow rather than buy. So going back to things like a floor steamer, or this is particularly good for tools and garden implements and that kind of thing, is borrow rather than buy. So, if somebody in your family has a sander, don't buy a sander. Go and borrow that sander, and then in return you can lend them something. Maybe you've got a drill that doesn't get used very often. I mean, Justin's always drilling holes in things, so I don't think he'd want to lend out his drill for too long a period. But we've got lots of things we don't use very often. And in my town, again, we have a little sustainability group, and somebody has suggested a library of things. And I've been looking at those, and what a great idea. So the idea is that if you've got something that you hardly ever use, you donate it to the library of things, then people can go in and borrow it and bring it back afterwards. And the library of things tries to keep them maintained and that kind of thing. They kind of run as a volunteer charity type affair. And I really hope this gets going, because I was given a big old Vax cleaner by somebody a few years ago, which sits in our garage, hardly ever is used. And I would be happy to donate that to the library of things. So I'm hoping that's going to happen. So see if there's a library of things in your area, or see if there's a group on Facebook where you can borrow and offer things locally. So rather than just buying something that you're not going to use very often, and you get the satisfaction of sharing, don't you? There's local sharing groups that you can look at as well. It depends, it's different in different countries, but you don't always have to buy something and keep a load of things like tools in your home that you're very rarely going to use, when you could just share with maybe some friends or family. Other simple ways to buy less, I just jotted a few down, was use your library. I've already mentioned that. And we had here, when the girls were small, we had a toy library as well as a book library. It was separate to the library, but it was a toy library, and it was just brilliant. And it was really good for big toys, like garden toys, sit-on toys, little slides and things like that, paddling pools. It was fantastic because, kids get bored with toys, don't they? And you have to store them, and those big plastic toys can be a bit bulky. So we would go in, borrow for a few weeks, take them back, borrow something else. They loved it. And I was a childminder for a while. I used it a lot then as well. Sometimes they would become favourites, and then we'd think, it's actually worth us buying these toys because they are going to use this really regularly. And sometimes we thought, well, maybe they'll go back and borrow them again. Sometimes it's worth it. But then that's it. They outgrow them. I think that's brilliant. So check out if you've got a toy library in your area as well. And you know me, I am very much an enthusiast of buying secondhand. We've got so much stuff. Let's keep it going and keep it in use for as long as possible. So buy secondhand. Upcycle items you already have. So I do this a lot with furniture. I just like to give them a coat of paint, update them, keep reusing them, modernise things, change the knobs on chests of drawers and that kind of thing. You can do all sorts of things, repair what you've got, and you can maybe keep fabric scraps, or you can keep items of clothing that have a really nice fabric on them, and if you're clever and can sew, you can make them into something else. I follow a few YouTubers that do that, even though I haven't actually got my sewing machine working myself, something I really want to do in the future. I also follow a few people on Instagram who make beautiful dresses and beautiful clothes out of old fabrics. I was looking at somebody the other day and she'd made a beautiful dress out of an old lace tablecloth, which, you know, it was beautiful as a tablecloth, but who uses lace tablecloths these days? And they're not very practical, are they? So, but she had made this fabulous dress with it, and curtain fabrics and that kind of thing. And I think that's so inspiring. So you could make that kind of your efforts towards reuse and consuming less a hobby as well, a kind of useful craft hobby. You could do things like make rag rugs. I made one years and years ago. It was quite easy to do. It was quite fun. It was only a small one. You could, without old clothing and that kind of thing. You can make quilts. I know Jane at Frugal Queen in France makes some beautiful quilts and picks up fabric quite cheaply. And it's a great hobby and really relaxing for her. You should just check out her quilts, honestly. She's really good at this stuff. You can make candles, use jam jars to make candles as gifts and that kind of thing. So reuse items you already have. All sorts of things. Once you get kind of creative and start thinking about it, the world is your oyster, as they say. I would say as well, invest in reusables. They cost a little bit more perhaps to start with, but will last you forever and give you a nice warm green glow because you're not buying more and more stuff. Disposable things like cotton pads to remove your makeup. The bamboo ones are good. I also have, it's one I've had for ages, and I probably wouldn't say it's the most sustainable, but it's a kind of fabric, flannel almost, and it takes your makeup off just like that. And I think I must have bought it. I bought some for the girls as well for Christmas. It must be 5 years ago. And I'm still using this. So although it is made from, I don't know, some kind of plastic fabric, I've used it again and again. I guess the bamboo pads are a little bit more sustainable. We've got some of those as well here. The girls always use those. So I keep those here, even though I don't use them very much myself now. When they come to visit, they all use them. So washable table napkins, if you've got babies, reusable nappies. Again, they cost a bit to start with, but you can buy them secondhand now. But the investment soon pays for itself, and you can use them again and again, go through your children with nappies and washable nappies, and save a load of nappies from landfill that are just there forever. The other thing I have is I actually picked them up at a boot sale, so I didn't pay full price for them, but I bought 2 rolls of bamboo kitchen roll, and you can wash it again and again. And I've got a little basket full of these bamboo rags that I use for various things around the house. But other than that, I don't buy kitchen roll, and haven't done for a long time. Coffee and water containers. Obviously, most of us have coffee cups and water containers, but do remember to take them with us when we go out. Sometimes I don't, and I'm annoyed with myself when I don't. So I've started keeping a couple of coffee cups actually, in a bag in my car. So I've got them with me. I always take water out because Archie needs water when we're out. Bamboo pads, I've already mentioned those. Reusable period pants or washable sanitary towels, or something like a moon cup. I mean, luckily for me, I don't have to worry about periods anymore. Another benefit of getting old. But the girls all love the period pants. I've bought them for Christmas a couple of years in a row, and they really love them. They say they're great. They feel really safe in them. I think they're really, really worth investing in. There's loads of other things I'm sure you will share in the comments below. Just think about how you can consume less and the benefits of consuming less. So the fact that it saves you loads of money. If you save loads of money, you've got that money to spend on things that really add a bit more value to your life potentially, or to pay off debt, or to pay down your mortgage, or to work less. There's so many benefits to spending less money. You also are not contributing to a climate crisis and environmental problems. And I know some people don't think the climate crisis exists. It does exist. So we have one planet. We have to look after our planet. It can feel overwhelming. You can feel like you can't do anything, but you can. You can take small actions every day that will have the dual benefit of saving you money and saving the planet. Anyway, I did get a little bit on my soapbox. I have to be careful with my arthritis, so I'm just going to get off it carefully. If you like this video, don't forget to give me the thumbs up and subscribe. And I very much hope I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.